Welcome to the Meet the Support Agency session. My name is Rachel Hunter and I'm the Director of Service Delivery at Highlands Islands Enterprise, and I have overall responsibility for client programmes in High, alongside responsibility for sector teams, which includes obviously the creative industries and international trade and investment. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined on the panel by colleagues from the South of Scotland Enterprise, or sort of new kids on the block, Scottish Enterprise and Creative Scotland. So we give everybody a wave. Mark Geddes, first of all, from South of Scotland Enterprise. So he's the Creative and Cultural Strategy Manager there. From Scottish Enterprise, we've got Derek McCrindle, Head of Place, so you give people a wave there. And also from Creative Scotland, we've got Morgan Petrie, Creative Industries Manager. So there we go. So that's our panel today, and I'm delighted that they've all agreed to attend. So what we're going to do in this next hour is we'll each give you a short overview of our organisations and the support we can provide to the creative industry sector. And then following that, we will then take your questions. Now, I'm sure that the questions will pop into your head all the time. So I would really encourage you to use the chat facility to tap in some questions as soon as you think of them, and we'll take them at the end. So on that note, I think we'll just crack on. First up, just to give an overview, is Mark from South of Scotland Enterprise. So over to you, Mark. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Rachel. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's delighted to be here at XpoNorth to tell you a little bit about South Scotland Enterprise. So as you said, I'm the Creative and Cultural Capital Strategy Manager. South Scotland Enterprise, we are the new kids on the block. We came into being on the 1st of April 2020, which happened to be right at the start of the pandemic. So from that perspective, we've had to do things completely different. Everything was digital to begin with, everything online. So it's been quite a challenge the first couple of years to do it during the pandemic. So from a SOCI perspective, we came into being to look after the South of Scotland. Now that's Dumfries and Galloway and Scottish Border Council areas. So that's the two sort of areas that we cover. Creative and cultural sort of excellence is built into our regional economic strategy. So fortunate enough that we now have the post within SOCI to look after the creative industries. So I started in January this year. And one of the sort of first parts I did was looking to map the whole of the creative industries across the South, so we understand who's doing what, where, and how they're doing it. So from my perspective, it's really good to be here just to have an open conversation to say about how we want to move things forward. So I'll pass on to the next speaker to introduce themselves.
That's great. Thanks very much, Mark. And I think now we've got Derek from Scottish Enterprise. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Delighted to be joining you in Expo. Hope it's all going really well for you so far. So I'm going to tell you a bit about Scottish Enterprise, what we do and how we support creative industries. You'll know that from NSE's perspective, one of Scotland's economic development agencies, along with SOSI and High, and our geography covers the Central Belt, including Aberdeenshire and Ayrshire. So it's a big area. Our objective, very clearly, to grow the economy, and our main target is more jobs, preferably green jobs. Growing companies is a core bit of our business, and we segment our companies into early stage, that's less than 10, SMEs 10 to 250, and large companies over 250. Based on recent feedback, we've moved the focus for our account management to support specific growth opportunities rather than long-term engagement. So we come in to support the specific opportunity that the company brings to us. We target the companies that want to grow, want to innovate, and want to increase productivity. But we also want those companies to share our values. So we want to work with companies that have fair work policies, that absolutely get climate change, and of course, they want to work with us. The type of stuff that we support, there's a broad range, and I'm sure you'll be familiar with some of it, but feasibility studies up to about 10k, specialist company support, training up to about 50, capital support, R&D up to about 100, and then we've got capital support, the big stuff that you'll read about in the press occasionally, positively, hopefully, and that's for place priorities over 100k. I'm also sure you'll have heard that SE is sector agnostic, but in reality, we're very aware of the significant contribution the creative economy makes to Scotland. I.e. the Fringe, one of the world's biggest cultural events, contributes £210 million per annum to the Scottish economy. Creative sits in my place remit, along with other national cross-cutters such as tourism and rural. Our place activity, therefore, creative industries investment is prioritised, and we prioritise it on a regional basis with agreed priorities with relevant partners such as local authorities and Creative Scotland. What this means is that regional collaboration is key to how we work with companies, work with partners, and we try to get partner agreement and resource to target those creative projects that maximise economic returns. And just a quick overview, and I'm happy to talk about this further, but a quick overview of our recent creative activity supported by SE. It includes the creative tourism and hospitalities company support through COVID with £30 million targeted funding and a further 2.2 to grassroots music venues. With partners with colleagues on the call today to provide £500,000 worth of support to help creative companies embrace digital innovation within their business. And within my place area, we've invested approximately 800k in the last 12 months against a number of creative capital projects in our area, which we think will support the wider partner regeneration. Brigitte and Clyde in the Clyde area, the Her Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen, and WASP support in Edinburgh. We've got no shortage of great projects right across Scotland. Unfortunately, we don't have the budget to go with it. We are, however, keen to talk to you about any support that we can bring to you, and whether it's myself or my colleagues Aileen Lamb or Sally Ann Ferguson, please do get in touch with us if there's any specific queries. Happy to answer any questions and dialogue. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks very much, Derek. And I think I'm going next. So as I said, from Highlands Islands Enterprise, we are obviously a very diverse region. We cover a very diverse region from Shetland, that's where I'm sitting at the moment, to Argyll, and from the Outer Hebrides to Moray. We cover almost half of Scotland's landmass, but only have 10% of the Scotland's population. And we have teams right across the region, so helping businesses, social enterprises, and communities. So we also provide support to communities to help them to develop and grow. We have been around for a while. We're not like Sosie, we're not the new kids on the block. We've been around since 1965. Over that time, we've seen the population of the Highlands and Islands grow by over 20%. So it's certainly been, it's a positive place to work, and people in various happiness surveys and indexes, then there's certainly locations in the Highlands and Islands that come out on top. In terms of our vision in the Highlands and Islands, we want Highlands and Islands to be a prosperous, inclusive and sustainable region, attracting more people to live, work, study, invest and visit. And we've got three priorities: to build successful, productive and resilient businesses, and enable strong, capable and resourceful communities. And we also are very much focused on the future in terms of creating the conditions for growth and a green recovery, and that ambition that we have as a country towards net zero. In terms of how we support organisations, we provide a range of support. We provide advice, we do events, we provide funding, and we also have property infrastructure to help organisations grow. We focus our support on where we have distinctive regional opportunities. So that includes food and drink, aquaculture, life sciences, renewable energy, advanced engineering and technology, the emerging space industry, tourism, and of course the creative industry sector. We're fully committed and aligned to the Scottish Government's vision for a just transition. We promote fair work practices in those we work with, and we've already taken the bold step by setting a clear commitment to drive the fair work agenda, with conditionality attached to all financial investments from 1st April 2022. Achieving net zero again requires similar bold approaches, and to further the support to the vital shift to net zero, we're committed to working with businesses, social enterprises, communities to encourage and support carbon measurement and development of net zero plans, as well as, and we're also taking the opportunity to, as much as we can, to showcase good practice going on in our region to obviously inspire others. Now, in terms of the creative industries, well, you're all attending part of HIGH's sort of flagship program to support creative industries, which is we call XpoNorth, and it's HIGH's mechanism for providing specialist advice to the sector, and it's an important sector for us. It supports 5,000 jobs in the region, and it's worth about £750 million. So XpoNorth is a year-round programme. We've got advice, we've got skills and training, networking, we've got international trade support, IP support, innovation, technology support. Our target audience is very much the smaller businesses, so creative businesses, freelancers. We also support social enterprises and community organisations, students and young people, and also if there are other sectors requiring sort of creative skills. We, as part of XpoNorth, we have the annual conference, which over the last couple of years has evolved to be digital, and because of COVID, and obviously has enabled us to reach more people. We've also got an XpoNorth digital programme, which is part of the Inverness City Region deal, and again that provides advice, skills and access to networks and markets to encourage the adoption of digital, to develop new business models and develop the crowd economy. We've also got XpoNorth Heritage, which supports the link between creative industries and the heritage sector, so encouraging digital adoption and access to new markets and customer bases that the museums and the heritage sector are involved in. We've also got a new programme called Level Up, which is an interface between the University of the Highlands and Islands creative industry students. So this is there's various support to this. So there's placements available and links made and networks made between the industry and students. So again, we've been able to give students work experience, network opportunities, and mentoring from sector specialists. So I'm going to leave it there. I think what we'll do is we'll move on to Morgan from Creative Scotland. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Good afternoon. I'm Morgan Petrie, one of two creative industries managers at Creative Scotland. We're a small team, a team of 7, and Creative Scotland is the development and support agency for the arts, screen and creative industries across Scotland. We have 3 routes to funding. We've got regular funding. We have a cohort of 120 organisations which underpin either art forms or are important to places around Scotland. That's a 3-year cycle, and as Mark intimated, in terms of getting SOCI up and running, we also had to pivot quite quickly into working from home and putting through a lot of emergency funding, which has been essential to keep the creative industries going over the pandemic. And as much as we'd committed to a 3-year cycle of support to regular funding, we've now extended that to a 4th year and probably into a 5th as we try to pivot to our new funding framework. But so I'll just touch on the areas of funding that we have, the 3 streams, and then I'll highlight a little bit about our open funding process, which may be of most interest to those of you in the room who know Creative Scotland, know what we do, but have projects that you might seek support for. So we are at the moment looking at a new form of multi-year funding, and we'll be engaging information and launching information around that in autumn, which will be of interest to organisations looking for longer term support. We also have targeted funding, which some of which is guided by the Scottish Government. Things like our Youth Music Initiative, which is essential for young people accessing creativity from a very early age and being able to play instruments in schools, but also supported out with the classroom activity. We have the touring fund, a place programme, and some interventions that we in the creative industries team make, like create networks. We've done a number of digital pivot support programs, digital mentoring. We also do a Go See Share, which is where interested organizations or individuals who have highlighted best practice internationally or across Scotland or the UK and want to learn from new business models, new practice, new cutting edge technology, that they can go and engage with that. But we ask them for the support to engage at a festival or a new business to bring back the information that they've gleaned and then share it, which we will republish. And a lot of the work that the Creative Industries team does is supporting subsectors or places. We work with the creative networks, for example, Creative Dundee, Creative Edinburgh, Creative Stirling, and those place-based activities that support grassroots activity. And we'll also support research or projects looking at new ways of being sustainable in an increasingly challenging environment. Our open funds are the key funding opportunities for people who have great ideas. We recently made a commitment to our new priorities which we're embedding across all of our funding. And there's no surprises really. It's equality, diversity, inclusion, sustainability, fair work, and international. And individuals don't really need to address those priorities. We're more interested in the creativity, the ideas that they bring, and the development of their practice. Organizations will have to meet the priorities pretty clearly. And we've got a guide to each of those elements, and we're working up our fair work priority in terms of what we would like to see from organizations. Obviously, that means fair pay, because predominantly the creative industries have a lot of freelancers, a lot of sole traders, and we anticipate and expect anybody who's engaging a freelancer or engaging a contractor that they're paid appropriately. In terms of sustainability, we mean environmental sustainability, but we also mean the sustainability of your business. We have recently published our climate and emergency and sustainability plan, and we will be working to make clear what we anticipate from applicants in terms of what a sustainable business looks like. And a lot of that is, working with our colleagues in High, in SOCI, in Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway to really work with you to develop business plans that we hope and aim to be sustainable. Anyway, the Open Fund for Individuals, we, as part of our funding review and our commitment to a new funding framework, we have restated our aim that we want to have support for individual artists as a strong, clear commitment to supporting practitioners and all of the art forms across Scotland. So we've got a new open fund for individuals. There are 3 levels of funding: 5 to 5,000, 5,000 to 20,000, and 20,000 to £100,000. This is now open for applications anytime for projects up to 2 years, can be as short as you like, really. The key criteria are the artistic strength, support the creativity of others, and reaching people, and obviously how you manage your project and your budget. Open fund for organizations is again anything from 1,000 to 100,000. Projects up to 12 months. We will be reviewing that and building in our new priorities, and we will have a fund that will be structured around our priorities, and we anticipate launching that in the autumn, and that will go to 24-month, 2-year projects. The regular funding process, we are changing to what we're calling multi-year approach, and we'll be publishing information on that in the autumn as well. I think that pretty much covers an overview, and I'd be happy to take any questions around targeted funding, multi-year funding, perhaps, but I think I'd be most interested in discussing any particular projects from organisations or individuals who are in the room. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So that's all our speakers, just giving a quick introduction. So I see, yeah, we're starting to get some questions coming in. I was a bit worried there. It was all getting very quiet, but we have one here. This is a question for Morgan. What are the criteria for the individual funds and how do we access it? Oh, I think you're on mute there, Morgan. Sorry.
Sorry, yes, I'm on mute. Rookie error, kind of switching between things. The criteria are, as I mentioned, it's the strength of the idea, the ability to reach your audience, your plans and your experience demonstrate that you can deliver a project, and we want to see a budget. And it's great if there are there's other funding at the table, which acts as a kind of market assessment. And I see Clive's put in the link to the guide to open fund for individuals very helpfully, thank you, in the chat.
Okay, right, any other questions or no? Okay. Oh, another question for is match. Sorry, another question for you, Morgan. You're on the spot here. And if match funding is available, who would you consider funding residencies? Oh,
yeah, we fund. If I understand residencies, yes. We work with organisations who host residencies. We would fund individual practitioners' residencies. At host venues internationally. It's about the strength of the idea, the experience of the artist or creative practitioner to be able to maximise the development opportunity from that residency. That would be a valid project, yes.
Okay, we've got I think we've got another question from Andrew. He said, can we hear about who will invest in cultural and creative infrastructure for Scotland? So that's to the enterprise agencies. I can kick off, and happy for my colleagues Mark and Derek to come in. But I think certainly from High's point of view, we have invested in sort of cultural and creative infrastructure. Thinking about Mareel in Shetland, and recently the Inverness Castle development in Inverness, and we've invested in various other creative and cultural institutions in the Western Isles and down the West Coast and so on. Our approach, though, is very much community or community led. So a lot of these organisations in the Highlands and Islands region area are led by social enterprises or community organisations, and we're keen to work with them to, even if we can't provide the funding, then supporting these organisations to access other sources of funding and to give them advice on how to undertake fundraising. So very much working with communities and organisations that are leading on creative and cultural types of activity across the region. Derek, will I come to you next? Is that okay?
Yeah, happy to. And I suppose maybe I could talk about a specific example that Scottish Enterprise is involved in that affects our geography, and that's the Clyde Mission project, which aims to regenerate the fantastic economic opportunities that stretch right along the breadth of the River Clyde. It's a mission-based approach which Scottish Government are very keen on at this stage. What they are pushing us and what we're keen to do is to collaborate strongly with a range of partners across. Sorry, that's my wife bringing a cup of tea, excuse me. Very unsubtle. Sorry, with Clyde Mission, it's a broad partnership, a range of partners from the Scottish Government through to the local authorities, through to Scottish Enterprise, Skills Development Agency, whereby we are trying to identify key infrastructure that will support key sectors. And one of those sectors that's really important for the Clyde Mission is the creative economy sector. So we're trying to engage with the relevant communities, the creative communities in that area, and we're trying to ensure that we fill in the gaps in terms of accommodation, whether it's creative accommodation for those businesses, whether it's particular venues, whether it's from the SEC through to SWG3, through to startup space in the Brigade. And what we're trying to do in that is bring a cocktail of funding from each of the relevant partners that can actually kickstart and ensure that we've got key infrastructure in place. And the key thing that I'm trying to highlight here is that Scottish Enterprise is following to try and build maximum leverage from the small amounts of relevant funding from each of the key partners, but using that to lever maximum investment from the private sector, who are key to this, from the companies who actually want to be involved in this space, and using that to bring about quick changes, quick investment plans that will impact on the much wider community. And I'm going to just, something that is sure to come up, but I wanted to make that point. From a place perspective, a long-term regeneration advocate, the creative economy is a massively important tool. And if we can actually achieve the twin objectives of creating new growth in the creative economy, at the same time regenerating parts of Scotland where there's multiple deprivation and providing access to opportunities for those communities, what a fantastic win-win that will be. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Derek. Very passionate response there. Obviously very close to your heart. Yeah, Mark, can I come to you next from SOSI?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. I mean, from a SOSI perspective, we may just be a couple of years old, but we have already invested quite heavily in the creative and cultural capital of the south of Scotland. And we're kind of doing that as a bit of a south of Scotland, team south of Scotland approach. So that is with the local authorities, with ourselves, national government and other agencies. We are part of the Borderlands City deal. And with that, it means that we can invest in quite a bit of infrastructure. And there's quite a number of the Borderlands City deal projects that are mainly capital build projects. They are identified. They do have, they've got a creative and cultural theme running through it. I suppose when we say that we invest in the creative and cultural sort of infrastructure, it's not just about the physical infrastructure, it's also about the people as well, and about those sort of ecosystems that we can try and build from a creative industries perspective. And that's something that I'm really keen to try and develop, make sure that we can make those connections. Within the creative industries, people can sometimes be seen as in isolation. So how can we try and break down some of those barriers? So there'll be quite a bit of work that we'll be doing going forward, looking at creative placemaking and looking at those connections from a strategic perspective, how we get all the partners to work together to understand, see the value of the creative industries, but also make those connections across the board so that even if individuals within the creative industries want support, they know who to speak to, they can speak to us, and we can have conversations. Just one element I want to touch on from a investment perspective. SOSI, we don't have the traditional sort of application process for funding. The principles that we have is that anybody can come and speak to SOSI. So we've got a completely open door, individuals to businesses, organisations, whoever it may be, and we look specifically at place-based activity. So how does whatever project or whatever proposal they've got, how does that impact on place? And we've obviously got a similar remit to High, SC and Creative Scotland. We've got the core principles of a just transition to net zero. That's actually built into our legislation, as is fair work. So they're the two key elements that we ask everyone to come on a journey with us. But when it comes to funding, we will speak to anybody and we will have a look at how we can develop that going forward.
Thanks very much, Mark. And I think it's, there's obviously a clear kind of message come across from the enterprise agencies that, about the power of sort of cultural and creative organisations and clusters in terms of being able to sort of galvanise communities and support regeneration, economic and social regeneration. So a really strong sort of united view on that. Morgan, is there anything you'd like to add to that? I don't know if Creative Scotland invests in infrastructure as such, but if there's anything you want to add to that.
We used to have capital funding, but not in terms of capital infrastructure. We can do small amounts as part of projects. In terms of the infrastructure, in terms of organisational, yes. I mean, we were really keen in terms of our place team complementing the work that the enterprise network does, because you've got that, as we were saying earlier, that emphasis on place, because that place-based approach allows the grassroots to strengthen and grow, and we want to work in that way with you as well. So and that's part of what the creative industries team are doing, is looking at opportunities for developing ideas and partnerships in local areas to strengthen communication, best practice, and sustainable growth of businesses. I was kind of thinking there in terms of the way that we're working, the way that you're all working, how Business Gateway and how we work with Business Gateway, because that quite a lot of that support at early stage individuals, ideas, grassroots activity relies on us communicating effectively. And I think there's sometimes more that we can do, certainly at Creative Scotland, to understand Business Gateway and how we refer backwards and forwards. Could I ask a question of you three, perhaps, just in terms of that change that you've gone through, or the changes that we all go through as public bodies and support agencies to respond to need? It used to be that there was a referral from Business Gateway, and is that still the case, that you kind of rely on those referrals for individuals and businesses to get in to access what I think you call the suite of support products? Is that still the case?
Well, I could kick off. Yeah, I mean, certainly in High we have 8, I suppose, area teams across the region, and many of these area teams are actually co-located with Business Gateway. So we have actually quite close relationships with Business Gateway, and yeah, there is actually really good informal relationships there, but there is a conversation or a referral process that goes that we've agreed with Business Gateway in the Highlands and Islands. So just highlighting the priority sectors, the areas that that we're looking to invest in, but it's very much of a conversation. I suppose we're at a scale that we can do that. So I'm not going to speak for other enterprise agencies, but yes, certainly at the moment we continue to have, and we at corporate level we have sort of quarterly catch-ups with Business Gateway managers in the Highlands and Islands and sort of Business Gateway HQ, just to make sure that we continue to communicate and I suppose just make sure that we're all up to speed on what our priorities are and what programs of support we can provide. And in many cases, High and Business Gateway have, in many areas, High and Business Gateway have joint funding programs. So I know that there's a startup fund in Moray and Western Isles and Shetland, for example. So looking at helping people from sort of priority sectors such as creative industries to start up their organisations, their businesses. So I'll go to Derek now, and he can respond.
Business Gateway is critical to to how we do our business. I'm going to be honest and say, from a Scottish enterprise perspective, we don't have capacity to have the reach and breadth and locality that our business gateway colleagues have, and that's how they're designed to be customer facing, to be community facing, and their location specifically chosen to do that, working alongside the relevant local authorities who have much better links into those communities than SE could hope to do, given our size and remit. But it's really important to emphasise that we are trying to ensure there's a seamless journeys for companies when they make that approach, whether it's being referred to Creative Scotland or other agencies or Scottish Enterprise in terms of our further stage development and growth programmes. We want to make sure, just as Rachel's emphasised in High, that journey is as smooth and as simple and as straightforward for those companies as it possibly can be. I think we've still got a wee bit to go in that. I don't think we're as clear as we could be in Scottish Enterprise. I think that's going to be an ongoing issue, that we need to do what we can to improve that journey, and we need to be listening to our customers to make sure that referral process isn't complicated and isn't putting them to additional and duplicating work for them.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Mark, and I think in South of Scotland you're in a unique position. I think you're actually running Business Gateway and one local authority as well as running an enterprise agency. So yeah, do you want to comment, Mark? Oh, we've lost you, have we?
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, Rachel, I think I dropped out.
All right, okay. No, just I bring you in, Mark. So I suppose you're in quite a unique position in South Scotland, because you're actually running a Business Gateway service as well as your enterprise agency. So you may want to comment on that.
We are, yes. So Business Gateway in the Scottish Borders is actually delivered in-house in SOCI. So the members of the Business Gateway team are employees of South Scotland Enterprise. That does put us in a unique position that there is no referral system, in that it is all part of the one organisation. We do share the same CRM system as colleagues in Dumfries and Galloway Business Gateway, which is still part of the local authority there. And regular conversations take place. We've got, within SOCI, we've got business advisors across, going back to the place-based aspect, we've got business advisors across the whole of the south of Scotland, as well as specialists that can help in particular areas such as creative industries. So from that perspective, yes, I think we probably are fairly unique from that enterprise perspective, in that it is embedded into the delivery that we do. We've got an sort of entrepreneurial lead and directorate that specifically looks at those startups and early stage businesses, but we don't have a segmentation, there's no differentiation, and the business will get the most appropriate support as and when they need it. They won't necessarily know that it's maybe moved from one aspect of SOCI to another, because we try and do that as that complete team South of Scotland approach.
Okay, no, thanks. I think, so Morgan, coming back to your original question, I think that, Business Gateway is critical, and it's in terms of the first point of entry for businesses looking for business support, that is Business Gateway right across Scotland. But once an individual or a business is interacting with Business Gateway, the journey onto other support might look different. But I think we want to be clear that that the Find Business Support website, which is sort of the main web page that lists all support for businesses in Scotland, is key, and obviously Business Gateway is the initial door that people and businesses should go through. But after that, then there's regional and sort of place-based approaches that take place. So I hope that answers your question, Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely, it does, and I think one of the things that came through the review of funding that we undertook, as I mentioned, 19 into 20, there was we learned that people were looking for having more about a relationship rather than just being a funder and having a barrier in an application process. And I think, we, with the best one in the world, we would want to have a a structured relationship management so that we can help and develop either sectors, individual artists, or organisations. And I think you've had, or certainly Scottish Enterprise had, an account managed approach, which was seemed that I think we could learn from. But it is that how you balance the demand and being open access with a more structured support. But I think working collectively does seem to be the best approach, if sometimes it can take time to understand each other. I think recently, through the pandemic, we've worked together well, and I think it seems that the Creative Digital Initiative, which was a way of working together to respond to challenges and the need to pivot to digital, shows that there's that we can work effectively and understand individual practitioners, small businesses, of which SMEs are primarily, the major cohort of the creative industries, but also those larger organisations who probably need that regional selective assistance and more about jobs. Yeah, so that answers the question. Before I talk myself into another question.
Okay, so I'll turn to the audience now. We don't seem to have any more questions. Anything, just to see if anything's coming up. No, it's just. I suppose while maybe people are thinking about questions, it would be interesting to hear from some of the members of the panel about what they see as the sort of kind of high level opportunities in creative industries at the moment. I think we've all seen over the last couple of years with the pandemic, I suppose the move to more digital delivery and online digital delivery business models, and thinking about the crowd economy and crowdfunding and things, all of these things that have come to the fore over the last 2 or 3 years. Just interested to get anybody's thoughts in terms of what you think the game changers are in the creative sector, the key opportunities. I think Morgan's got his finger up.
It was just, sorry, Rachel, it was just when you said game changer, and obviously the games industry found it fairly straightforward to pivot to working from home, to cater to people who wanted more digital content, to support performing arts, to engage with those that couldn't come together and show their work, or in music as well. Digital seems to have been a key beneficiary, or those who have digital skills or digital businesses. And I think that's one area that we really want to explore to maximize the potential, to look at what we've learned. But I think for us, for this year, really what we can learn, where we've come from, what were forced to go through, and how that will change things for the future. And you mentioned also crowdfunding, or working with audiences, working with stakeholders, working with patrons, or those who love arts, culture, creative industries, getting them more involved. That is where we want to explore. And I think I noticed that Arts and Humanities Research Council have done a large project around audiences of the future, digital, VR, augmented reality games, and that where digital meets the performing arts. I think there's a huge potential to maximize the opportunity that has come from forced turnaround of creating work and reaching audiences digitally. But it was just when games, I think I'm noticing that big increase in the jobs. Access Animations in Glasgow, I mean, they doubled their headcount over that 2-year period. They were forced to go internationally, but that's how their business was able to look for skills internationally, contract people to work remotely from around the world. But they were able to maximize the opportunity. Sorry for me jumping in there. Thanks, Rachel.
No, it's okay. I think we've got a couple more questions, so we'll maybe go to that. first of all, how do we assess the impact of investment in the creative economy beyond economics? So the quadruple bottom line is I think is as the saying now goes. So economic, social, cultural, and environmental. Derek, would you like to come in on that one first of all?
Oh, that's a toughie. Look, I think we all accept that growth is not the economic growth is not the be and end all, and we need to be a bit cleverer about how we measure impact right across all of those 4 areas of and how we bring that together. From Scottish Enterprise perspective, we do put a lot of time and effort into our economic impact assessments on a traditional model, but we are absolutely starting to think about how it's not sufficient, and we know that from an environmental perspective, from a net zero perspective, we're going to have to get much cleverer, probably more sophisticated about how we value the environment and how that's built into all our appraisals. And I think that's going to be a big game changer right across the economic agencies in the not too distant future. Do we have that model yet? I don't think we do, and I think there's still a bit more work to get done on making sure it's not only captures all the relevant data that it needs to, but it presents that, I'm going to use that horrible phrase, balanced scorecard, so that we're very clear in what it actually means for investment decisions, not presenting us with something that's just unworkable at the end of the day. But look, I absolutely support this, and I'm really keen to develop an appropriate assessment method of assessing impact, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, no, I agree, Derek, and I think our colleagues in our sort of research and economics teams are working hard in looking at metrics around social impact. I mean, certainly in High, we do, because we support communities and social enterprises, we do collect data on trade at turnover and, you know, supported employees, volunteers supported, all that sort of thing, but it tends to be activity targets. But actually to understand what the sort of impacts are at long term, that's going to take a bit more work. But I think it's something we're all focused on, and we're also looking at, I suppose, collectively as agencies, how we, you know, measure, you know, carbon output from projects and so on, and you know, in terms of that environmental bottom line. So I think it's definitely a trajectory that we're all on in terms of our projects, and growth for growth's sake is not what we're looking for. We're looking at, as Derek says, a more balanced scorecard going forward.
Rachel, could I just give a wee quick example? I think
yes,
because all of the agencies, including have been led by Creative Scotland, have funded recently a sustainable hub within the screen sector, and I think we could do more of that type of area where we're promoting sustainable development and good environmental practice across the creative industry. And maybe there is a new initiatives that we should be looking to identify that lessen our impacts and in particular promote particular areas in the green economy. So there are some very specific measures that a joined up partnership agency approach can help deliver. And I think, you know, the screen sector's sustainable hub is actually a great example. And if you're wanting to find out more, I'm happy to provide some information on that.
Yeah, I think I remember signing that project off as well. So, yeah. So that's
Rachel. Can I come in on that one as well? Yeah, I would agree with Derek. We fully endorse the sustainable screen hub as well. One of the projects we're working on in SOCI is with creative informatics and University of Edinburgh, and it's about creating a measurement for measuring well-being of creative and cultural activity that people participate in. So it's not looking at the economic activity of what a cultural event or activity might be, but that impact on people, and that's something that we've currently got in development. So it is looking at a technical solution and creating a well-being index linked to that, so that we can start to try and measure some of these social impacts and these well-being impacts as well. So that is something that we're running at the moment, and we should hopefully have a solution, all being well, by sort of November, December this year, where we'll then look at that model, how it's working, and whether that can be rolled out further.
That's great. So thanks for that, Mark. And I think it's something that, you know, the other enterprise agencies and Morgan would be interested to hear more. Definitely, yeah, that'd be great. So we've only got 5 minutes left, and yeah, I'm just getting my warning messages. The next question is from Rob Lockwood, and he said he'd be interested in hearing the panel's perspectives on specific criteria which is used to judge the strength of an idea. I guess this is for quite novel, new, groundbreaking ideas where there isn't precedence. How do we, I suppose, understand what the impact and of any potential investment might be? I was going to say, Morgan, sorry, Derek, do you want to go first? Sorry.
Well, look, I'm just going to jump in because I'm conscious this is quite a complex question, and it's one absolutely germane to a lot of our investment decision making. I've got to be honest, and I'm going to say we're never going to eliminate risk, and we need to get the right balance between accepting new, innovative, creative ideas and thinking and processes, and making sure funding's available for that. But from my perspective, in terms of managing my budget, I need to take risk into consideration when we're reviewing projects and appraising projects. It's a key factor in the decision-making process, and I think you're accepting that in terms of the question. It's phrased, you are absolutely getting the fact we need to get the right balance, and it's about balance. It's about making sure that we are not risk averse. I think, from an SE perspective, and I've certainly seen it in my colleagues and other agencies, we are not risk averse. We do try to support creative new thinking, but we'll always need to be mindful of the downside, and even that when it comes to legal agreements and legal contracts for all that funding, we need to do what we can to mitigate the public sector funding wherever possible.
Yeah. And I think as enterprise agencies, there is always an element of risk. Everything we do, that's what we're here for. And when we do get it wrong, then we're obviously vilified in public. But at the end of the day, enterprise, business, there is an element of risk. So I agree. We're risk aware, but not risk averse.
I think for Creative Scotland, I mean, we can take perhaps more risks, because if it's a project involved, or if it's an individual who's got a great idea, we have specialists who are looking at the landscape in perhaps literature, in film, in dance, in visual arts, and there's an element of subjectivity in anything that you assess in terms of against criteria. Obviously, we're going to look at the track record, what they've delivered before, but bringing in other voices, trusted voices or collaborators, helps to mitigate risk. And I think for small prototyping, R&D, for a small amount of money is worth the risk on a project. And I think we've got a reasonable appetite for risk, but it is difficult to prove the strength of an idea. But again, we do rely on those people who have been specialising in particular art forms and areas, and trust their judgment. And sometimes things don't go well, but as long as we learn from it, that's fine. Learn from mistakes, no problem.
Okay. No, I'm just, Mark, if we want to come in on that one before we finish.
I think on that point, there's a number of principles that SOCI has, and two of them jump out. It's bold and striving, and that being bold and actually taking those risks is one of the areas that SOCI is moving forward with. Yes, it is still public funding. We do still have to manage risk in some fashion, but we are willing to take those next steps. I think leap of faith is quite an interesting sort of terminology. That's the type of innovative approach we want to capture with people, and we want to try and take forward. So yeah, I think as an organisation, we've got that embedded in our sort of DNA going forward anyway.
Okay, I think we're going to have to close up now because I'm getting hitting the 3:30 deadline. But I think the message is there. Yeah, we're up for having a conversation with people that have got new ideas, and looking at how we can work with them and other partners to bring these to fruition. So I'd like to thank my panel members today. It's been a really good discussion. And wish you, if you continue in the conference this afternoon, have a good day and tomorrow. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye.